Welcome to You Can't Shovel Hurricanes. Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
Well, this is a journey that we're both going to take, literally and figuratively. But everyone on the podcast, we're going to talk about guns, taxes, money, immigration, the impact on marriages, kids, school, healthcare, the entire journey. And we're also going to get to some fun stuff. And we're going to talk about lots of exciting things that you get to do in Florida that you can't do in places like Toronto. And the truth is, I was debating whether I was going to have this podcast because I'm going to be interviewing my wife. But the reality is this is beyond a journey that you can only take with somebody who's willing to row in the same direction as you. But it's also the most, at least this point of our marriage, the most challenging, most difficult, most stressful, fun, exciting thing that you can do. And we've already noticed this between people that we know. It sheds a light on any faults within a marriage. So if you're not on solid footing and you're not willing to work on it together, you end up divorced, or you strengthen your relationship, which is where I believe you and I are at the moment. But it's also because it's arguably been the most difficult thing that any one of us has encountered. And we've been through some shit. We've been through some things in a relatively short time, illnesses and deaths in the family and trauma and drama and all kinds of things that are really, really hard. But from your perspective, because obviously I have one and I will share it. What do you think this move did for you as a person, or how do you think it impacted your role as a mother and as a wife?
This move, I feel like, forced me to break out of my shell and to look in the mirror, and continues to do that so that I can continue to grow. And I'm somebody, as you know, who is deeply spiritual and very profoundly and deeply rooted in wanting to grow and expand and learn and become a better version of myself always. That's what I always am striving for. And for me, I really feel like this opportunity allowed me to feel so much more opportunity in my own life, took the ceiling off of my head that I felt was always there, specifically in my business. And what it did was it really shook me as a human, as a wife, and as a mom. What it did for my business sense and my strength in my actual business is it opened up a door. And what it did to me as a mom was it forced me to trust myself. It forced me to rely on just me and you, which was not our life prior to Florida. Our life prior to Florida was nanny living in our home, mom 10 minutes away, mother-in-law 10 minutes away, having access to all this support and not really feeling like I need to rely on myself, that I can always rely on somebody else. And that feeling that, that little girl in me that felt like I needed to always rely on somebody else. And this was like, no, Frances, grow up. This is you being independent, you doing it totally on your own for the first time. And not only on your own, but you literally are on your own. It's just you guys. So for our marriage, yes, I think, this brought up a lot of stress. This brought up a lot of showing myself my own weaknesses, which is not something I like to look at, not something I like pointed out to me because I am a perfectionist, but it is something that really hit me in the face, areas that I need to grow. And in our marriage, what it ended up doing to this point is I think it fused us to get closer together because we are on our own. There's no one else to turn to. It's who do I turn to? It's you. And what it's really reinforced so much for me is you always have been my best friend, but you are my best friend. If I'm going to spend any time with anyone on the planet, it's going to be you. And that's who I want it to be. So I think, as a mother, it scared the living shit out of me. It really did. I was terrified to come here and to not have somebody to fall back on, to not have a nanny or a grandmother to fall back on. That parenting was all on me, which is hilarious considering the fact that I am the behavior analyst. I coach parents, I consult to parents. But when it came to parenting, it was like, oh my God, am I doing everything wrong? And so it was now trust yourself. Listen to yourself, make the mistakes, learn from the mistakes. You have to trust yourself. And I think that that's what this journey has been, like rip off the ceiling for my business and grow and vision and move forward and be that role model for your kids, be that support for your family, but also rip off the Band-Aid. You can be mom, rip off the Band-Aid. You can be wife. You don't need somebody to lean on and fall back on always.
It's amazing what you can do when you don't have a bloody choice. And this is a decision that we make willingly. This is something we took upon ourselves. It wasn't something we must do. And to give everybody context here, I'm in the real estate space and was the primary breadwinner for our family in Canada. And Frances ran and does run she's a clinical director of an autism and behavioral center called the Playbase, and which has expanded to South Florida. Now we're in a very unique situation where we're here on what's called an E2 visa. It's a business visa, and we had to either invest in a business or expand. And the choice was to expand Frances's role because her area of expertise was also something that was in dire need, specifically in South Florida, which puts you in a very unique situation now, both as the primary, and I'm technically a dependent to you, and adds a whole new layer of pressure and requirements that you haven't had to do before or needed to before, which is a major strain between husband and wife. And I can speak to my perspective, and it was a massive ego hit, which turned out to be one of the greatest gifts that I could ever receive, because it forced me to be a father more so than I ever was before, and spend more time with my kids. But from your perspective, having that added layer of responsibility and having more weight on your shoulders, how does that feel? What's that like?
I'm not somebody who suffers from anxiety. I'm very thankful for that. But I have vicariously experienced anxiety and witnessed it in people throughout my entire life. And it's something that I kind of stumbled upon in this process. My anxiety has definitely been higher because, like I said, there's nobody to fall back on. You just have to keep moving forward.
Are you doubting yourself?
I do. I do and I don't. I do when I'm in the moment of a stressful situation. Literally today, I doubted myself this morning. We had this conversation, doubted my abilities, doubted what I know, doubted my abilities in all areas. But when I look big picture, it's here where I feel the most clarity that there is no doubt. It's since we've moved here, since the idea of moving here, since being here, in big picture, there's zero doubt. I know where I'm headed. I know my capabilities as a professional, as a wife, as a mom. I know all of those things. I can feel it. Like it's like the blood running through my veins. I can feel it. It's where I'm destined to be, what I'm destined to do. But there's also in the moment when someone says to you, no, that's not what I need. No, that's not right. Or you're getting pushed back, and then you question yourself, and then you're like, oh, wait, do I really know that? Maybe I don't. Maybe I actually am not all these things that I say or that I think or that I thought. And it's those moments. But really, in reality, when I step back and I think big picture, I know I can fall back into the knowing that this is exactly what I meant to do and I'm doing the right things. And I just have to, I know, just take one step and then the next step and one step and the next step, and I will get there. But yes, I doubt myself all the time. I doubt myself as a mom. I doubt myself as a wife.
Mama guilt.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing from a dad guilt as well. I mean, I lose it on my children. I think I average 2 a day, I'd say.
That's not true.
Well, but I mean, it certainly feels like it. Maybe I want to lose it at least twice a day.
You're very patient with them, surprisingly. I mean, you have lost it. You're human.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm surprised when I feel like my brain, I use the expression that my brain's exploding or that my brain's going to explode. And you're like cool as a cucumber coming in and with a calm voice. And I'm like, don't lose it. Like, I don't want you to lose it because I'm losing it inside. And you're like, I'm good. And you actually surprise me in a beautiful way.
What is it exactly that you do here for those people listening?
For my business?
For your business.
So I'm a board certified behavior analyst, which I learned in a very big way here is a bad word. And I do ABA, which I learned is also a bad word. However,
ABA,
applied behavior analysis,
right,
which is the science of learning behavior and how we learn behavior, why we learn behavior, motivation, reinforcement, all those different things. And it has historically been done through a method called discrete trial training, which is not the method I use. I was thankfully trained to use a very play-based and naturalistic approach. And over the years of my training, the years of working with different professionals, the years of working in schools, the years of my own healing and growing journey, I kind of honed in a skill of supporting children in a very holistic way that allows them to be kids, that allows them to be heard, that allows them to be themselves and work on the skills that they need to learn, as opposed to focusing on changing who they are or how they show up in the world. The idea is nobody needs to be fixed. Nobody on this planet needs fixing. We all need tools. We all need support. I need tools. I need support. I'm hiring an administrator because there are certain skills that I don't have. There are certain hours in the day that I don't have to put towards things. But when I'm doing therapy, I'm showing up person to person, heart to heart, soul to soul, looking at the entire individual, focusing in on what they need, going through the science of ABA. Like, how do I implement these goals that we're working towards that are all through assessment, that are all done through a scientific method? However, I'm implementing it in a way that feels natural, that is playful, that is showing up to a kid exactly how kids want to be shown up to, in a playful way. Kids learn through play. So that's what we do. We do a play-based, naturalistic, child-led approach to applied behavior analysis that also incorporates mindfulness. And the idea is that we look at the child through a holistic lens, not through, how the individual just interacts with the environment. But there's, the whole bottom of the iceberg that we don't get to see, that you have to get to know. And it's through that relationship, it's through that trust, it's through that love and empathy that you can actually get access to that. And not through, here's my binder, here's the right answer, let's see if you get it. And if you get it, you get your reward, or you get a reward just for showing up and sitting at the table with me. I like to say it's therapy with dignity. It's a humane way to approach a child.
Do you find that the way you practice is the norm or the exception?
It's the exception.
Do you get pullback or backlash, or do you get some sort of pressure because of the way you do things to the quote unquote purists?
Yeah, I've been told that one of the main people who trained me is unethical because of the way in which she works. And this person was going to hire me to replace her for a maternity leave. And I was like, you realize you're hiring the person that she trained for the last 7 years? I have heard, don't use this language because that's not what ABA is. And this is not how we do ABA, which is the reason the Playbase was born. The Playbase was born because I worked in an environment that didn't align with my vision, with what I knew was a way to really make it a beautiful impact. It didn't It didn't fit me because nobody fits in a box. No human fits in a box or in a textbook. We're all totally unique. And so why is our approach scripted, texted in a textbook, literally, and reading off of it in the correct response? Nobody fits into that box. And so with your incredible encouragement and support, I was able to create the Playbase. And it came out because it isn't the norm. And historically, I've had people come work with me and come use our services because it's not the norm. And I've had interesting conversations with people here in South Florida who are thankful that I'm here because it's not the norm, or who call me and say, I don't want ABA. And then I explain, you want ABA, but you want it done in a respectful way, in a loving way, in a compassionate way, in a way that really honors the individual, that isn't trying to change who they are, but rather embraces their beautiful gifts and explores them in a really empowering way.
So would you say that you're somewhat disruptive to the industry?
Yes. And I think it's something I shied away from for a long time, to be the disruptor, because I was afraid of the backlash of the people who were going to tell me that I'm wrong.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of somebody telling me that. I'm afraid of people saying to me what that inner voice that doubts me says.
Imposter syndrome?
Yes. Yeah. I'm afraid of that being true.
Funny. I go through the same shit.
Yeah, we all do. I've learned
in different ways, especially when you're moving to a different country and you're trying to reestablish yourself, where you have deep roots, ways and patterns of doing things. And this entire move is a disruption on every single scale.
Yeah,
now,
it was terrifying.
You've taken your business and crossed the border. So it's fair to say you are now a multinational corporation, which is factually true. But you're also a mom. You're also a wife. You're a long distance daughter and daughter-in-law, amongst other things. How are you managing? And when I mean managing, not necessarily the relationship, I mean, how are you managing internally? Because I know for us, we've had moments where it's like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through today. And I know I've had a lot of those, and I suffer from anxiety where I'm like, I feel like I've lost my mind, I can't seem to get straight. My head's foggy. And I can't say I didn't have those in Toronto. I have them differently now because the stakes seem to be a lot higher. And then you are my rock, my calming voice. And then there's the days where you're that, and I think I'm the other side. And then there's the best days where we're both fucking psychotic. And there's like, we have to hold it together for the children. No, but really, how are you managing?
The real answer is that sometimes I manage and sometimes I don't. And I could say lately, I don't feel like I am. I think you've seen that lately I have definitely not.
Oh, I know. I've been meaning to trade you in, but I mean, I'm your dependent to the visa. So this may not work as well as I expected, but
you're stuck with me for some time.
Until we get a green card. Sayonara. Pace.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not managing, but
what are you doing? Yeah,
so that's what I was going to say. I have certain things that I said, like I said a few days ago, I need to go back to basics. I need to go back to what I know works. Wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, journal if I can, at least do, some gratitude, go to the gym, come back, start my day, end my day with gratitude.
Do you do that every day?
I do it most days. Yesterday, I did not do it. And this morning, I went to the gym. I didn't do my meditation. And I notice a difference when I don't. When I'm feeling too tired. And I heard something I think Dr. Joe Dispenza said, I believe, don't quote me if it's not Dr. Joe Dispenza, but I believe he said, people who are busy, everyone should meditate. People who are busy should meditate. People who say they don't have time to meditate need to meditate for 2 hours every day, because it actually allows you to show up the way you want to show up, the way you need to show up. It allows you to ground yourself, to then move forward. So it's one of the things that I don't do consistently enough, but that I love it, the impact when I do it.
I could tell you from my own perspective that there is so much comfort in routine.
Yeah.
And I am a creature of routine, and I very easily get dysregulated if I'm not in a routine.
Mm-hmm.
And in Toronto, I thought I was a busy guy. And then we moved here and I realized how inefficient I was and how much I neglected myself, both body and mind, and how important it is to have a routine and waking up early. So we have a game plan. You wake up at the same time as I wake up. You go to the gym. I go to the kids. I get them ready. I feed them breakfast, try to get them dressed, try to get them to brush their teeth. By the time you come in, you usually put the finishing touches on things, because by that point, I'm like, I'm out. It's on you now. You drive them to school, and then we start our day. And we have to become ultra efficient, because we usually have to pick up the kids at 3:00, and then the programs begin, and it's one program after the other, after the other, after the other. And then there's homework, and then there's bathing, and then there's our nightly routine. So we have to essentially establish 2 new businesses from the hours of 8 till 3, assuming no child is at home without a fever. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of people know, that when you immigrate to a new place, like Florida, and I'm assuming it's the same. And if you're immigrating somewhere cold, good for you. Good for you. But we have, and I have reason for this. We have considered, our voices right now are lovely because I've got a good case of postnasal drip. And I think so do you, and so do 2 of our kids. And I feel like we've been perpetually sick since we got here. I think it has something to do with the fact that the kids were locked down for 2 years in Canada. Yep. So they didn't have the opportunity to get all the germs and boogers and all that stuff that they're supposed to get when they're supposed to get it. And now we're the recipients of all this. And I've been told that there's a lot of allergies going around here in South Florida. And one of the things I was told that it's actually the opposite. You and your kid don't get as sick here. I think it's trial by fire right now.
It's also, they say new place, new germs. So exposure to something new that your body hasn't been exposed to.
Right.
So.
I get it. But between the fact that we have, financial strain, mm-hmm. we have child raising strain, we have lack of knowledge on, the little things that if we look 8 months ago till today, like I remember that feeling for the first month. I'm like, I don't know where anything is.
Yeah, driving to the grocery store. I remember going to Target for the first time without the GPS. I celebrated with the kids in the back. I was like, I got here without the GPS.
Yeah, I know. And I remember till this day, I got to admit, I still think that there's alligators in the lake behind our house. So I'm afraid to walk our dog and the kids, specifically Kobe, for some reason. I think he's the scrawniest. So he would be the most delicious one, the obvious target.
The crunchiest.
Yeah. So, but it is this overwhelming thing where you're like, oh my God, if I was only this efficient, at least I think of it, in Toronto, where would I have been in my career? Where would I have been in my life? Where would I have been in my marriage? But there's also this human aspect for us that's really challenging, is that we don't have privacy. Mm-hmm. We don't have time for one another. Mm-hmm. And we're crunched for time at the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. And it's challenging. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I think it's changed the dynamic in our marriage. I think it's changed the dynamic in our whole family. And I think it's also added a totally different layer to work ethic, where like I can't rely on somebody else to be with the kids so that I can work in the evenings if I need to, because maybe you're not available, or we have to it's also added a layer of communication for us, and we have to be so much more aligned together in that so that we can work together as a team. Because like I said, there's nobody else to fall back on. But yeah, there's definitely, I have to make sure I get everything done by 2:30 so that I can get in the car for 2:45 to go pick up the kids, or you have to, and I have a few more minutes or an hour more to do stuff. So I totally feel that way. And I think it's changed also the dynamic between the two of us. I mean, you're right. Like there's very little privacy. There's
our mothers are listening to this probably, so just be careful where you head with this.
There is less time together. And so it's also like, you know, we have to find a babysitter in order for us to go out. And so there's more planning involved. I think there's just, and you know, you have to adapt to the change. You have to adapt to the new way of being. And I think that we've done that in a strong way. I don't want to like take away from the challenges, but I don't feel like we've adapted in a way that's jeopardized our relationship at this point. I think we've been through, you know, a really trying time and that we were able to overcome. And I think that there is definitely a layer where I think as a team, and I always say this, we make a really great team, that we together have been able to lay a foundation to get to this point. And I think that our ability to work together and to, like, we are opposite in many ways. Like, my voice doesn't sound so zen right now, but I was told that I should do audio recordings for meditation to help people feel calm. And you're like the voice of like engaging and talking to people and getting and bringing people out, like just this podcast, like it's, you know, quite opposite. But I think we're able to fill each other's gaps in a way that really complement one another, that allow for this to be not as painful and a little bit more seamless, although it's not seamless. It just, you know, when I fall down, you're picking me up and vice versa, like you said. And sometimes we're both like, holy shit, at the same time. But we always come back to each other to hold each other up. We always come back to each other to fill those areas. So I think although there's been, you know, a layer of learning and adapting, I think we've done a pretty good job.
What's the biggest change you've seen in me since we've moved?
Aside from your beard.
Aside from my beard.
Which I asked for because I love it.
Yes, we needed to come to a warm environment so I can grow a thing on my face.
I think the biggest change in you that I've seen is the way you are with the kids. And it's the best thing to witness. It has made me admire you and love you even more.
How is that possible?
But watching you step into this in an even more active father role, which I think the most beautiful part of it is how much you love it. Like, I think that's been the most amazing thing to witness.
It's ironic that you say about the kids, because I feel like in some ways you have or had or still have, you know, some guilt about the fact that you may not have as much time for your children as you did before, but you also very gracefully handed that off to me, because a flip side, I know why you'd feel the guilt, because you feel like you're missing on certain things. Yeah. But then you didn't leave it to a stranger. You gave it to somebody else, and you know, I'm doing my best to try to handle it. Mm-hmm. But I am watching, I can't say I watched in the past tense, I am watching an evolution as a business person that is, it's kind of like, I feel like a scout in sports. Like, you pick that winning horse, not at the finish line, but before the gun goes off. And I mean, I saw it the whole way, but now you're starting to see it. So I'm watching you grow and do all these amazing things. And whereas before you were doubting every single decision you're making, you're asking, I'm there, but you don't need to do that, because you're hyper focused on what you need to do, and you're going. Instead of doubting every move, you're just putting your head down, going right through. So I'm watching this happen, and I don't believe you've even scratched the surface of your abilities. And within a very short time span, you're now like on your third or fourth hire. You're now doing professional developments everywhere. People know who you are. You've become already the go-to person, and you don't have a second to kind of sit back, because we don't have that luxury. We have bigger goals, but I'm watching that, and that is not something that anybody can do. It's certainly not something that everybody can do, because you have a world full of people that fill their roles, and there's nothing wrong with what they do, employees and stuff like that. But for me, it's like watching this incredible growth, like it's like planting the seeds and watching it grow. But now, I know it'll bear fruit, but I don't think you even realize how amazing that is. And I think that some of the things that you may be taking off the table and spending time with your kids, I think, especially to being a mom to two daughters, two very strong-willed, beautiful, smart, creative, independent girls, you're showing them what a woman can do and what kind of balance you can have, both as a mother, as a wife, and as an entrepreneur. So I think by default, you're teaching them an incredible role just by doing what you're doing. And you also don't have the luxury of a plan B or failure or any of that. So I think that's the best way to head into things, but it is also incredibly comforting to me, which I manage finances. I manage the overwhelming majority of that stuff. I manage our route down here. But to me, I get to sleep at night, although I haven't the last couple of days, because I can see growth. I can see momentum. I could see change. And change used to be like a 4-letter word, at least to me. But something your dad said to me, he's like, change is good. Change is good. He used to say that to me. And I'm like, it's just a saying, but some of these sayings sort of resonate before a move. I know we don't make this thing sound very appetizing right now to move to South Florida. And I don't think this is the intent, is like to sell people on the idea by any stretch of the imagination, because it is hard and is not for the faint of heart. And we're doing it in style. Like, both of our parents are immigrants, and they did it without any money or any language, and had an incredibly strong why. Okay. If you had to verbalize, what is your why or our why for why we're here? Why? Why?
I get asked that question all the time.
And how do you answer it? Because I have it's a multiple layered question. You need to sit down. Coffee needs to be involved. It's a whole thing. It's a process.
There are multiple reasons why. And I think it started with, I know it started with a discomfort with the way in which things were handled by our government in Canada and in Ontario. It didn't feel comfortable to me. I know it didn't feel comfortable to a lot of people. It felt like choice was taken away and freedom was taken away. People were, locked up for a long time, in and out, in and out, in and out. I got to witness the results of that in young children through my work. I got to witness the results of that in adults. And when I could see the writing on the wall around pushing for vaccines for the kids, it made me uncomfortable. Not that I think there's a problem with vaccinating children. I do. Well, I didn't feel comfortable.
I have a problem with not having a choice, not the decision to vaccinate. I don't have a stance on that. I have no
problem with the choice to vaccinate your child. I have no judgment. Everyone should be able to do whatever they feel is right. It did not feel comfortable to me that the choice was being taken away, where our eldest was not allowed to go to gymnastics and to tennis anymore. And her school was toying with the idea, or their school, not her school, their school was toying with they were insinuating that it might be something that they do. And so it made me uncomfortable. And that's when I opened my mind to the possibility. I was only open to the possibility at that point. when I opened my mind to the possibility and then we came, it was not even at all about that. It had nothing to do with that for me. It was, and I express this all the time, where we were filling up gas at the gas station and I could breathe the air, which didn't smell like gas. I don't know. It was fresh air. It was sunny. It was beautiful. And I remember standing there and being like, oh, it's so beautiful here. So beautiful. And then it like hit me. You're at a gas station. Like, what are you like soaking in right now? And then I thought to myself, if I can feel that here, I can feel that anywhere here. And then there was a moment, and I always say I'm very spiritual. Might sound weird, but I feel very connected to the moon. And Ronan was having a conversation. You were having a conversation with someone. I think that conversation was really swaying you away from wanting to move here.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I could feel the energy and I was like, I am not here for this conversation. So I went outside and it was like a wave where intuitively I could just feel we needed to be here. I didn't know why. I wasn't sure what that meant. And I looked up, there was a big, beautiful full moon overlooking the ocean. I was like, oh, there's my sign. Okay. And I just could feel it inside of me, like a knowing. And I explain it as a knowing, not as a belief. It's a knowing. I could just feel this is where we needed to be. And everyone I spoke to, every single person I spoke to, when I told them what I do, everyone says, oh, we need you here. Oh, we really need you here. And I was always like, why? Why do you need me? Why do you need me? But I kept hearing it and I was like, well, this is where I need to be. And everything lined up, like the stars aligned. Everything just fell into place exactly as it should. Even when we questioned it, everything just lined up in this beautiful package. And it was like, here.
Well, for context, I actually, after that conversation, said, I don't want to come here. I'm done. I don't think I could do it. And when it was purely financial decision, watching the way, the lifestyle of the people we were around, the area we were in, and it just didn't seem reasonable. It's like this place you have to come to established financially. You don't come here to establish. And that was, that was a real trip for me because I'm used to being good at what I do, but I'd say better than good and stable and comfortable and growing. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm calculating the math and it didn't add up for me. 3 kids in private school, investment in the business, buying a house, cash flow issues, and the same thing that my dad always says. And I am not nearly as much as foo-foo as you by any stretch. Although I do catch myself saying some ridiculous things sometimes that I think you've plugged into my head. I think you whisper them in my sleep, in my ear while I sleep. It's like, tell them you like good energy, things like that. And then, there were signs. It's odd. There were some signs, like weird signs. That first box I opened up, and there was a picture of my late father in the most awkward place in the world. Like, it didn't make sense. A lot of things that had to go right went right without even really trying. But I think our why was so strong and our decision was so strong that we kind of, there is no halfway about this. You either do or you don't. And you have to be all in the entire time. And whatever you think you are ready for, that saying it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, you're not fucking ready. Nobody's ready. And I don't know how our parents did it.
So here's the interesting piece is that we knew it was going to be hard. We said it was going to be hard. And one of the things that I explained to people is that you don't know what that hard means. Like, I know hard, but what exactly does that mean? And it was like,
what does that mean for you? What's been the hardest part for you?
Yeah, and that's, it feels like everyone speaks English, right?
Yeah, I think so. I except for New Yorkers.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone, you're in North America, but it's like learning a whole new language. Yeah. And the way I had just had a conversation with another lovely mom who I befriended, who's also from Toronto. And I said to her, every single step you have to take, there's multiple micro steps. And in those micro steps, you have no fucking idea what that means or how to do that or where you're going to get that. So it's like, you have to learn to rely on each other and to trust yourself, and B, you're extremely resourceful. That's not necessarily the skill set that I naturally have to be resourceful. I always feel like I have to know. And if I don't know,
that's because
then I beat
have
myself
to be
up.
resourceful, or else we would have been living outside.
In a shoebox. Yeah.
You would have found us a shoebox?
I would have bought a pair of shoes and we would have lived in that. So for the hard is, there's layers around that where it was like all this learning that was like so sudden and so much, and you don't know where anything is. You don't know the right place to go. I don't even know if, where we went grocery shopping was like are these good groceries? I don't even, like, everything is totally new. Everything from the grocery store to where you're going to work to every single person that you will meet and encounter. And it's getting to know different personalities, putting yourself out there, like most of us who haven't moved, this is the first time I've ever moved to a new place. We've had our friendships our whole lives or for many years. And yeah, we meet new people and we build friendships, but here I know nobody. Who do I turn to if I need something?
Me.
Yeah.
That sucks for you. Because I have I turn to Google.
It's been like, I think the biggest test to our marriage, but also.
Wait, are we doing okay?
Yeah, pass. A+. Like Chloe puts A++ on her work.
Just saying, divorce is very expensive, especially over, across
shut up.
the board.
Stop talking about divorce. That's enough.
I'm not talking about divorce. I would never divorce you. Okay. Now. Fuck. This is all on video. You can see, and our mothers are listening to this. We're not getting divorced. All right. You said something about rebuilding relationships and things like that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I say, and we've both encountered this, and I think in moving, it was like, I don't want to use some foo-foo terms like a rebirth, or it's growth, but some very long-standing relationships that we both had with people who we really cared about and people we thought were like, our ride or dies, that once we left, we lost those relationships and they almost seemed like they didn't exist and we didn't need them. And we're a better version of ourselves not being around them. There were some things that were incredibly hurtful by some people that really hurt us, because at the time when we were arguably the most vulnerable and going through this massive move, we thought these people that we were there for them when we think that they needed it, they weren't there for us in the form. Thankfully, we have, strong families and they were very supportive for us. But some of the relationships that we've had, the strong ones, they were there. We're talking to them all the time. We're communicating, we're finding out. And then some people just completely fall off. And I think that it's a positive. I think it's an unintentional byproduct that happened, and it's nothing to say about them. It equally speaks to our relationship and our bond with them, because it's a two-way street in a relationship, like any relationship. But I mean, that in of itself was like, well, we can't focus on the bullshit. Like, there's no time for the nonsense anymore. It's only about us. And when I mean us, I'm talking about our kids, our relationship. And I will till this day argue that your marriage is more important than your relationship with your kids. That's not saying the kids aren't important. I'm saying your marriage, and I'm sure this point will be touched on many times, and there's so many other things, and you and I could probably do 10 of these and still not even scratch the surface. But I think that if you do not work on your marriage, your kids will feel it, even though you don't think they will. And it's really, really important. And I think that some of the relationships that we had that we no longer have, or, they might come back around, they might resurface. And I know that we were hurt by them, and I'm not holding any grudges or anything. It's just, shedding the nonsense was really helpful. I think the thing that we miss the most is families. And we were a big hosting kind of family. We had people, but I don't miss drama, and I'm glad that we don't have the time for it so that was an interesting byproduct. But how do you feel about guns?
That was a great segue.
This isn't a segue. This is a conversation that you and I have had multiple times coming down here before we were here and while we're here, and we'll probably have more as we go along. Is the kind of things that people are talking about. Like how many conversations have we had people from Canada call us and be, hey, how was your journey? What are you doing? How's it going? Things like that. So like, how do you feel about this? Because people want to know, Francis. You have to talk to them about guns.
I don't like guns. They make me very uncomfortable. It's a conversation we've had many times.
Do you want a gun?
No.
Never?
No.
Can I have one?
No.
Will I have one?
Maybe one day, but definitely not now.
Okay. Well, we're not allowed to have one under the E2 visa. I personally am not opposed to guns or anything like that. I would like a world that doesn't have any firearms, and I'd probably sleep better. But I personally don't want. I don't want to be in a position that I'm not ready in case something needs to happen. I don't think that anything will. We have a 100-pound American bully at home that looks very intimidating and might lick a burglar's face.
It might wag her tail.
But really, this is a gun state where you can literally walk into a store, zero security check, and walk out with a gun. And a tragedy happened 15-minute drive from our house where 17 or 18 poor innocent souls were murdered by a fucking psychopath. And it's a real thing that people think about it. How did you overcome that when we were coming down here?
I don't know that I really overcame it. I don't feel it in my day-to-day. I'm aware of it. The awareness is like, I don't go to the gas station or anywhere by myself at night. I just won't. But I don't know that I would have done that in downtown Toronto either, because I've always felt uncomfortable being a 5-foot female walking the streets by myself.
Are you allowed to say female?
Yes, I am female. And I've always felt like prey. And I think the fact that I know people carry guns here, that makes me feel more uncomfortable. Does it impact my day-to-day? No. It doesn't. Like, maybe in like Thornhill, I would have gone to get gas at 10 p.m. and watched around.
But that would have been my other question. Was it different in Toronto? And
in downtown Toronto, I would not have. I would not be caught dead by myself. And when I was on the phone with someone because I felt uncomfortable. And that I would call you and say, I'm walking by myself. This is where I am. And
I would jump over the phone to save you in case there was trouble.
But my logic is, if you know where I am, you can dial 911 and say, this is where she was.
Or why don't you hang up and call 911 instead of talking to me? Well, I'm just, stop it. Okay. I get it.
So for me, I don't, I am aware of it. Is it something I'm happy about? No, it's not. I do not like it. I am not a pro-gun person. I'm not somebody who thinks everyone should have a gun. I think they should be used by police officers if needed, and the army, and that's it. Like, I don't want to think about, a child getting their hands on it, or someone who's mentally unstable, which is, that's when tragedy happens, when somebody is mentally unstable or the wrong person gets access to it. That's a problem. That's a big problem.
Well, the margin of error is zero.
Yes.
I mean, once bullets start to fly, they don't know where they're going, right? It's pretty crazy.
And I'll say, like, we went to a gun range, a shooting range. I don't know what it's called, but we went, and it was my choice because I wanted to
it was ladies' night.
I wanted to experience it. I wanted to know what it felt like. And it felt less scary when I was holding this small gun. I was like, okay, it felt less intense. But there was a man I didn't know in the slot right beside me, And I was very well aware that at one point, if he so chose, he could turn around and I'd be gone.
But that's there's a carry conceal here. Supposedly 15 to 30%
But I can
of people
see him. Like if I walked around and saw people.
No, because you didn't. The guys that just walked by the booth here, they could potentially have a gun.
I thought about that actually.
Yeah, but I mean, that's Florida and that's the reality. But there's an overwhelming majority of people that are responsible gun owners, but there's zero margin of error. Like there's the counter argument that it's, if one of these lunatics is going off half cocked and starting to shoot people, I'd like to know that there's, multiple people around me that have one and can pop a cap in their ass and end it. No, I know. But if it's already the cat's out of the bag, I mean, you might as well have a bag.
Have a shoot off?
No. Well, yeah. Do you want somebody who go, just without being unchecked if you're at a Walmart? Right. It's a stupid argument because I'd love in a better place knowing that there weren't firearms. From a safety perspective, I felt much safer than I did in Toronto than I do here. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that at all. I don't feel unsafe, but I certainly felt safer in Toronto, and I never encountered anything like that. Although I think things are changing because I don't want to get into the politics of it because I don't know enough. I feel like you and I have only scratched the surface of all the challenges and hurdles and things that we are going through on a day-to-day basis. I also feel like if we got a chance to go backwards till now, we'd see like this evolution in every aspect of our lives. And I'm excited to see what the future holds. And change is good. And after some dealing with my father's illness and now this, I feel like there's nothing in this world that I can't do. And there's nothing in this world that I can't do as long as I'm with you. And it's pretty cool to know that you got a partner in that you can do all kinds of weird shit like shoot guns and you'll try it. This is a podcast that's purely about what a journey's like of like an everyday couple. We're going to interview and talk to medical practitioners in every space. We're going to talk to police officers. We're going to talk about credit. We're going to talk about mortgages. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about everything, about also the fun shit to do in Florida. And there's so much stuff to do.
Like the beach.
Yeah, that's just scratching the surface of a lot of things. And I hope you guys all go around this journey with us. And it should be a fun one. But you and I will probably end up doing this again, because there's so much. But if you had to do it all over again, would you?
Without any doubt.
No hesitation.
Zero. I love it here. And I say, even on the hardest days, and go outside and I look up in the sky and I am so thankful.
And you can't shovel hurricanes.
No, you can't. Thank God.
I love you, baby.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
Bye.